Yeah, we are live. We are live. We are live. Today's episode takes us back to the show's original intended purpose, which is to facilitate survivor stories, allowing survivors to share their stories, knowing that each time we share our stories, we heal in places that might still be tender. And we get to practice owning our stories so we can be fully us as we inspire others with them. And then we get to celebrate surviving. Hello, Marilyn. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. We get to inspire others with them, and then we get to celebrate surviving. And that's important because some didn't make it. Some didn't have the strength to survive. We had to make some decisions and take some actions that helped us to survive, even as children and growing up into adulthood. We had to make some decisions to prosper despite sufferings. And those things we can take credit for and celebrate through actual celebratory activities and self love demonstrations. We're going to hear from a woman who is confronting repressed memories of stolen childhood innocence. And she is a testament to where you begin does not have to be where you end up. So, big up yourself, kings and queens, and welcome to another episode of the Big Up Yuself Show. I am your host, Winsome Alexander, also known as the Big Sister. I'm a self empowerment mentor and advocate for survivors of childhood trauma. Been working with survivors of trauma since 2008, certified as one of Texas's most inspiring women. And I'm also a self-titled self-seeker, a facilitator of self-love, self-acceptance, self-knowledge. And I'm currently working on a project to help us connect with divine self, awaken self curiosity and self knowledge, and leaning into the spirit of Queen Ishtar, or some of you may know as Esther of the Bible. So stay tuned because you're going to want some of this. And if any of this sounds good to you, you're invited to subscribe to the channel and be a part of a beautiful, supportive community. I promise you, you'll enjoy hanging out with us. We love to love you, even when you don't feel like loving yourself. Also, please like the live, press the X, please, and press the thumbs up icon, or like the replay. And don't forget to share your thoughts via a comment. Welcome, Mimi. Yay! So glad to have you. Now, let's get on with the show. I have a multifaceted, well accomplished sister to introduce to you today. And before Helaine J, thank you, Helaine Smith. Oh, Helaine invited you, Helaine. That's great. So, this is a multifaceted, well accomplished sister I'm about to introduce to you today. And before I bring her on, let me read a little bit of her bio. Helaine Smith is a West Coast native raised in Watts, South Central LA, and South Phoenix, Arizona. She is a mother of four adult children, three sons and one daughter, and grandmother of five, three grandsons and two granddaughters. And she looks nothing like it. Trust me when I tell you. Let's bring her onto the screen. She looks nothing like it.
Thank you, Winsome.
Yes, she holds a bachelor's
Thank
of
you.
science in government from Texas Women's University, and she's currently working on her master's jurisprudence in cybersecurity and law policy at Texas A&M University School of Law, where she plans to graduate in 2025. Helaine is the Vice President of Engineering and Architecture Governance at a financial firm in Dallas. She has also been a licensed realtor for 27 years and a licensed minister for 16 years. She loves Pilates and has been an avid classic Pilates student since 2014. Helaine lives in Dallas with her French bulldog, Nova, and her English bulldog, Solomon, right? Which
Yes.
one is Solomon and which one is Nova?
Solomon is the cream guy. That's the English bulldog. And then Nova is that one looking at me mad because I put an outfit on her and she hates to wear clothes.
How cute is that? How cute is that?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Welcome, Helaine. It took a
Thank
minute to
you.
get here, but now you're here. I'm so glad to have you.
Yes. Thank you, Winsome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's carry on. Let's acknowledge who else is in here with us. C Temp, hello, my friend. Hello, my sister. And we said hello to Marilyn and Mimi and Delane. Okay, Jay, Delane. Okay. All right. So now, Helaine, I noticed your name sounds like Elaine.
Yes.
You spell it with an H.
With the
Now, how
name.
did that come about? Who named you? And just tell me about your name.
So it's really interesting. My mom says that my name comes from a character on the, not Young and the Restless, but One Life to Live or Days of Our Lives, one of those. And interestingly, in college, we had a course where we had to do the history of my name, and found out that that name Helaine was only popular in the 60s, like from like 62 to like 69. And there was like 50 of us with that name. And ironically, most of the women that had that name are on the East Coast. So this year I did a volunteer event where I was mentoring fourth graders, and a lady had the exact same name, and she was born in 64 like me. So it was really funny. I said, but yeah, it's like this name that maybe that's what it came from, the soap opera, and there were a few of us that had that name, but I've actually ran to a lady that has my exact same name. We booked a table at a charity event. She got there before I did. And they said, oh, we thought it was a duplicate. I was like, no, there's two Helaine Smiths, right?
Oh my goodness.
And she was the same thing, born the same year I was born, everything. So yes, ironically, that name probably will never be used again, but it was in the 60s. It was sort of popular.
Oh my goodness. That is so interesting to hear, because when I'm looking at your name and I'm thinking, I bet she's the only Helaine. I'm going to ask her if there are others.
Maybe 40 or 50 of us all born in like the 60s. So.
Oh my goodness. See, that's so interesting. Yes. And there was a course in college about the history of your name?
Yes, they made us, so that was one of our assignments in my women's class. It was a women's class in college, and they said, hey, we want everybody to do the history of your name. And that's how I found out that there's only so many of us in a certain range of time. And I've ran into at least two of them. So,
oh my goodness! I keep trying to tell people there is something to your name. Your name is an integral part of your identity.
Yes, my name means light. It means light in every language. Every language, it means light.
Every language, it means
every
light.
language. It means light. Yes.
See there.
Yep.
And how you can just walk through life with that light.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
It means light in every language.
People learn the story of your name.
Absolutely.
It can greatly impact
your
overall story and your identity.
Yeah, I agree, Winsome. It really does. Yep.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Now, you know what? We're going to go into some deep stuff, some heavy stuff. I would like us to take a moment and take 3 deep breaths just to center ourselves, right? And prepare the atmosphere for healing. Because we're not just talking, we are healing.
Right.
So let's do 3 breaths. We're going to hold each for 4 and then release. Let's
Okay.
go. And just like that, we feel calmer.
Yes.
We feel calmer. Deep breaths are like little love notes to our bodies.
They
And
are.
we should remember to do them as often as we can.
Agreed.
Okay. So, Helaine, you
Yeah.
are faring well right now,
Mhm.
but things didn't start out that well for you.
Mm.
You suffered some abuse and some trauma in your childhood and earlier years.
Mhm.
But let me say this to the audience. First of all, let's just acknowledge that childhood trauma is difficult to overcome. And it takes us years and years to get past some of the vestiges of such trauma.
Yes.
If you haven't experienced severe childhood trauma, you might want to downplay the level of courage that it takes for a survivor to share their story and to heal. I want you to extend empathy to Helaine as she shares because it takes a lot of courage to come public with these things. So, all right, Helaine,
Mhm.
where does your story begin? How old were you and what happened to you?
So, I'd like to hone in on a certain time, but I feel like it's important to kind of give a little bit more context back. So my story begins at age 2. My father kidnapped me from my mother from Phoenix, Arizona, and took me to Los Angeles, California. And so for the story that my mom tells is that there was a domestic violence incident. And so she left the house with me and my brother. I have a brother that is, we're Irish twins. His birthday and my birthday are a week apart. So I'm older, but we're the same age for 7 days. So my mother took me and my brother to my grandparents' home.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Your brother was a week.
He's just short of a year younger than me. So he's just,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So
Okay. All
we're
right.
the same age for 7 days, and then I'm older. So
Got it.
we consider that
Okay.
Irish twins because we're the same age for those 7 days. But yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's okay. No, it's a good question. But so my mom lived in the neighborhood of my grandparents, and so she left the house after this incident and went to my grandparents' house to get a weapon. That was the story I was told. But my grandmother made her stay, and she stayed at the house with the two of us and went to sleep. Late that night, somewhere in the midnight hours or so, my father broke into the window of the bedroom where we were, and he stole me and took off with me and left and moved and went to Los Angeles. Um, so I have no memory. I had no memory of that. But when my memory picks up when I was about 3 years old, and I know people always say 3 years old, you have memories. Yeah, I have very
Mhm.
clear memories. As a 3 year old, my father worked for Mattel Toys, and because he couldn't find a babysitter. I don't know what the situation was. I stayed at home alone all day for 8 hours. And when you think about that, and I think about my own grandchildren, and I go, to leave a 3 year old child at home for the entire day is terrifying to me. But if you were to ask my father this, he used to think that was really a proud moment. Yes, she was 3 years old, and I would stay at home by myself as a 3 year old. I knew how to cook on a stove with fire and everything.
At 3?
Yes, at 3 years old. Yeah. I cooked and I sat there and looked at Flintstones. That's what I can remember, is looking at cartoons all day. And that was my life. Well, one particular incident that always sticks out with me is that there was a plumber, and something happened in the bathroom, and they came to the apartment to check on the plumbing. And I don't think I knew I was a 3-year-old. I'm gonna be honest. I thought I was an adult. So I entered the door, let the man in, let him check whatever it was he needed to check. And he said, I need to come back tomorrow. I just remember this experience so strong in the memory. And so when my dad got home from work, I told him, and he was not happy with it. So what he did the next day, certain parts of the story where I will get emotional because I didn't know when I was young that this was bad. But so my dad tied me up. He tied me to a chair and tied me up and put me in a closet. So I had to, because he knew that I didn't know I was a child, and he knew I would answer the door again. And I guess to save himself or to protect himself, he decided that he would tie me up and put me in a closet so that I wouldn't be able to answer the door. And so that's one of those memories that, like, as a child, I didn't really realize it was bad. But as I became an adult and have my own children, I was just like, who does that to a child? Like, you put a 3-year-old, tie him up in a chair and put him in a closet, and they stay there for how many
8 hours?
Yeah. So one of those memories, really tough memory to go back and relive, but it happened. And mainly for his protection, and probably in his mind, he probably thought my protection as well. You know, I don't want a grown man to be in here with her and she's by herself, but it's traumatic. It's a traumatic memory. So,
oh my gosh.
So that's 3 years old. So after that, I think maybe the stress of me being alone, he put me into, like, started letting me live with girlfriends. And, you know, so I'm very protective of my grandkids now because I remember all the things that happened to me with these random people. Like, I'm 4 years old, I'm being exposed to girlfriends and their kids, and they have boys, and their boys are attracted to me. And they're older boys. Like, I'm a 4-year-old. Boys are 13, 14, attempting to molest me because whatever God gave me, he gave me a gift of tongue, and I could talk my way out of so many things. I still remember always, like, saying, but I'm just a little girl. You don't want to touch me. I'm just a little girl.
Really?
Yeah. I avoided that because I really and truly knew how to talk my way out of stuff. But I did run into an incident with a babysitter. Her son was going to molest me no matter what. And so it just so happened that at the moment that he was trying to get me and pull me into the room where he was, my babysitter came over to the house, and she said, I sent her over here looking for something, and she's been gone too long. So that was kind of God's grace, just kind of going in there, making sure I was protected. But at around this time, my dad started dating a lady that was really my first mother figure. And her name was Lottie, and Lottie took care of me like a daughter. She had another daughter, and that was my sister. And we ended up going to kindergarten together. I remember us going into kindergarten together. And, but my first time seeing my father abuse someone with my own eyes was with her. And I saw him bust through a bathroom door and just beat her in front of me. And I think as a child, I don't think that you ever know that you're seeing something really horrible. You're seeing it, but it's almost like as a child, you're seeing it with innocence, and you're thinking it can't be that bad. And so after that, I think they broke up, and then I ended up with another babysitter. And this is all when I was still in South Central LA. And I was living with the babysitter. And this was, I think, when I first went through my experience of neglect and like the disappearing father, because I was supposed to be there Monday through Friday because I was in school, and my father was supposed to pick me up on Friday nights and then keep me for the weekend. And this is where I think I have like a lot of disappointment when it comes to men, is because my father didn't come a lot of times. So I'd be sitting there waiting, and there were other kids that lived there during the week, and they'd go and leave on the weekends, and I'd just still be there. So this babysitter became like family to me because I was always there. And then every now and then one of my aunts would come and get me and say, we don't want her to be there the whole time by herself. So that was where I really learned the disappointment of like waiting on someone to come and they never show up.
My goodness.
So that was very hard for me, and has led to a lot of issues in relationships too. But so around that point, my dad was dating just a lot of different women. You know, I was kind of going back and forth, living with people. And around 7 years old was when my father exposed me to a lady. There was a lady he was dating, and this lady was bisexual.
Mm.
The thing I feel like with children, it's just really important that they not be exposed to things before it's time, because it just is very confusing to them. So my father went to visit this lady, and I remember he said, I got to go run to the store, and he leaves me with these two women. And they were taking a bath together, and they said, hey, come in here with us. And, you know, I'm thinking naively, oh, they just don't want me to be sitting in the room. They don't know what I'm doing. So I come in this bathroom with them, and these two women are in this tub bathing each other. And as a child, like, I don't know that I could even I knew it was right, but I was like, why do you want me in here with you? Like, I don't understand this. I'm a 7-year-old. And I already remember having conversations in my head about stuff, but I was a very passive, very innocent child. So I would think
child,
but never say it. Like, because there are kids nowadays that would go like, "Ew, what are you doing?" Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, I would always be feeling that on the inside, but I wouldn't express that. So I'm sitting there, and then they're just kind of, you know, fondling each other and right in front of me. And then getting ready to get out of the tub, they're like, okay, can you get a towel and dry us off? And so, yeah, so I'm just, you know, I'm just one of those children that, like, to know me was to know I was very, like, if you told me to do something, I did it. Like, I didn't really question it. I was like, okay, they said do it, I'm going to do it. So I was trusting, and I just down, and they didn't try to do anything to me. I think they just wanted to expose me to it. And that's, to me, that's just mean and evil.
Oh my God.
So my father gets there, and I don't say anything. They don't say anything, which lets me know, like, they obviously they're crazy, or they think that it was okay. And then around that time, my dad he sent me to my aunt. My aunt lived in Quincy, Illinois. So here's the period of my life. I don't have any firm family structure. I'm just being bounced from house to house to house to house. So I then moved to Quincy, Illinois with my dad's oldest sister and her husband. And they don't have any children at home anymore. She's older. Her kids are all adults. And that was my first experience with really just feeling like, this is my family. This is home. This is where I want to be. I love it here. It's peaceful. I get to be a child. And went through some experiences there, just trying to navigate my aunt, because she was really.
You were about 8.
I was 8 at this time.
You're 8.
And it was a small town, so my aunt would take me with her to work, and I really loved being there. I did. I mean, I had to go through some things, but it was more just childhood stuff, but my aunt tells a story that she begged my father to let me stay, and he said no. So right about, you know, the summer of 8th grade, going into not 8th grade, but summer of 8 years old, going into maybe 4th grade, that my father sent for me. So I went back to Los Angeles. And when I got back to LAX, my dad introduced a woman that he had married. This is when my troubles really started. So this woman was, yes.
All of what you went through before. You're saying this is when your troubles really started.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is when my troubles really started.
Oh my God.
Well, my dad picks me up at LAX with this lady. And this lady is one of the 2 women that was in the tub. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
She's one of the women that was in the tub. Yeah. So he introduces her to me, and he said, this is your stepmother. We got married. And I just remember saying to my dad, oh, I remember her. And my dad said, no, you've never met her before. I said, no, I met her before. I met her. I know her. And he said, no.
Remember?
Yeah,
he didn't remember, or he thought you didn't remember.
He just didn't think I remembered, I think. I don't think he thought I remembered.
But he didn't know what happened in the tub, did he?
No, he didn't know. He didn't know. I don't think he knew about it. And I was just one of those children. I didn't say anything to him. So my dad was in school to be a professional broadcaster at the time. And I remember we went straight from the airport to his school because he had class that night. And while we were there, the more confusing thing about my father is that he was neglectful, but he was very affectionate. So he was very affectionate. He was always like, oh, she's so beautiful. She's so this, she's so that. Look at her. She's a star. She's this. So it was just very confusing to have someone be that way, but also be neglectful. So I always deferred to the affectionate father. I never held him accountable for the other things. I always referred to him as, I love my dad. He's so good to me. He loves me. He treats me good. He doesn't let anybody hurt me. So while we were he was in school, I had to use the restroom. And so the stepmother said, let me go with you to the restroom. And I was like, okay, I think she's going to be protective. And when I got in the restroom, she immediately slams me against the wall and says to me, you think you got your father under your finger, your thumb? She said, you're not gonna pull any of that stuff with me while I'm his wife, and I don't care what you do. You're not getting away with anything with me.
Wow.
And as a child, I'm thinking, I don't even know I don't even know how
to make of what she's saying.
I don't even know how to I don't even know how to process that. Like, I'm just like, now I'm thinking, okay, I'm being bullied by a grown up, not a kid. And how do you do that? And I don't go, and I'm still not this child that's vocal that goes back and says, Daddy, she slammed me against the wall. Like, and I think some of that is because I saw my dad beat up Lottie. And I think that was when I got disciplined by Lottie and I said something to my dad about it. So I think maybe I'm suppressing. I don't want anybody to get in trouble, so I'm not going to say anything. And so it ended up that I went to school in Hollywood. We were living in Hollywood, and I was in the 4th grade, and this lady I don't know what she thought about me or I don't know, but she was very strict with me, very, very strict with me about a lot of things. And so it ended up that I was in school from 8 to 4 every day, and she worked the first shift. My dad worked night shift. So my dad was never home during the times that she and I were interacting. My dad didn't get home from work until like maybe midnight or 1 o'clock. So what I learned about her was that anytime, so she went to the school and she said to the teacher, I want a note from you every single day as to what her behavior is. I'm a 4th grader. Kids are not going to be like perfect every single day.
No.
They're going to be kids. And so if the teacher wrote anything on there that said she was very talkative today, because I was a chatty, she's talkative today, I would get a whooping. And so then she decided that, so every day that I get home from work, this house has to be, because I think there was maybe an hour difference between when she got home from me. So I had an hour to clean the house spotless it was called a white glove test. She put on white gloves. I was a 9-year-old.
She put on gloves?
White gloves, and would go over the surfaces of everything. And if there was even a speck of dust, I would get beat. So now we've advanced from whoopings to beatings, because now she's looking for extension cords or anything that will hurt me, like that will physically hurt me. So, and I think it's because like I had just gone through so much. I don't know if you're just numb as a kid to like, I don't know, but she felt like she wasn't hurting me. So she just kept doing things to make sure she was
worse.
Hurting. And so the next thing she added on was, if there was a dirty dish, I would have to remove every dish in the cupboard and rewash every dish.
Oh my God.
So there were days that I wouldn't go to sleep until maybe 1 or 2 in the morning. And what she would say to my dad was, oh, she's just finishing up washing dishes. She's been taking forever to wash the dishes. And he never questioned it. He just kind of was like, okay. And I wasn't used to that from my father. I was used to him being a protector to a certain degree. And so it was just, and I think it got to the point where I just hated to be around her. And one day when I got out of school, I decided I wasn't gonna go home. I went to a friend's house, and in my mind, I wasn't running away. I just wasn't going back to where she was. And back in Hollywood, and anyone that's like probably from Hollywood, California, there's a lot of people that are Thai, like Thai people, Vietnamese people. So a lot of my friends were Thai. And so I just went to my Thai friend's house and stayed there. Her mother didn't, I don't think she knew. She just kind of was like, she's here. I'm going to feed her. I'm going to make sure she's okay. And I probably was there maybe till late that night. It had to be late because my dad was with her when they showed up. So one of the other friends, I guess, said, she's probably at this house. And they actually came to the house to get me. Nothing happened that night. They didn't, I didn't get in trouble or anything about that. But the next day when I was headed home from school, so my school was at this place and there was a Catholic church that was in the middle of this place. And I didn't have any religious background other than maybe Catholic church. My aunt had exposed me to Catholic church. And there was this Catholic church that I had to go through to get out to the street and get home. And I remember going into this Catholic church, and I always say it's like my first experience with really like calling on God. Like, and I didn't even have an experience to know. I just remember that there were candles, in Catholic churches, they have candles where you go and you put in a donation and you light a candle and you pray. And I just remember praying and just asking God to get me out of it, like to just help me because I didn't want to be there anymore. And I went home, and when I got home, she was there with a friend. So I was kind of late, but I don't think she ever really cared if I was late coming in, if things were clean. So I got home and she was there with a friend of hers from Louisiana, and they were talking about disciplining kids. And she said, yeah, she's so bad. She's terrible. She's this. And the friend is just looking at me, and they're having this conversation about like how you discipline bad, unruly kids. And I'm still in shock, like thinking I'm a bad kid. Like I don't even have a thermometer, a meter to understand if I'm a bad kid or not. So she said, yeah, what you need to do is put her in a hot tub, in a tub of scalding water.
What?
And I just thought to myself, that's not, no. And I just remember thinking, no, that's not. They're playing, like that's a joke. Nobody's gonna ever do that. Like that's just a joke. Well, from that day forward, that's what happened. So the next day, maybe the next week, I don't really know a frame of time, but I remember getting home from school one day, and she just said, I checked everything, it wasn't clean, and I need you to run hot water, go to the tub bathroom and run hot water. And I was just thinking, okay, I mean, I'm this kid. They go back into, I'm this kid that is I just do what I'm told to do. So I run the tub of hot water, and she says, don't put any cold water in it. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know. Like I've forgotten about the conversation. And then she says, now take off all your clothes and get in this tub. So all I remember is just like not believing that it was real. Like maybe in my mind, I just kind of like checked out and was like, this isn't real. This can't be real. There's no way she's going to make me sit in this tub. Like this water is just scalding hot. And it's California hot water is hot water. Like it's really hot. So I just remember when I sat down in that tub and she just sat there, she said, yeah, you're going to sit there for 5 minutes. And I just remember sitting there and just was like, I don't know why I didn't cry. I don't know why. I just sat there and
wow.
I just sat there in a tub of hot scalding water, and it was high enough to where it was like at my stomach.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm so sorry. Like I literally was just like, I'm sitting here and I'm just going, why is she doing this to me? Like, why is this, am I that bad of a kid? Like, what's wrong with me? And then when I got out, my body, it was just like needles in my body, and it was just like stinging. And I just thought to myself, I'm never going to have to do this again. I'll be such a good kid. I'm never going to have to be in this tub again. I'm never going to get it. I'm going to do everything perfect. And so I think I struggle with that now as an adult, is I got to do everything perfect. And so right after that, she got pregnant. And I remember her, like my dad asking me to watch her because she used to chew tobacco. She chewed tobacco. And my dad asked me to tell him if I saw her chewing tobacco because it wasn't good for the baby. It's nicotine. And
Mhm.
so I told my dad about it one time. I said, Dad, I saw her chewing tobacco. And the next day when I got home from school, she was just, it was so winsome. She literally like threw me to the ground and put her body weight on me. And she said, I'm gonna break your legs. I'm gonna lay on you till your legs break because you told your dad that I chew tobacco, and I'm gonna break your legs and I'm gonna burn your body up. I'm gonna make sure your body is not beautiful, that your legs are ugly and no one looks at you and you're not pretty anymore. And I just remember being like a little girl, remembering those words to this day, like,
My goodness.
what's wrong with you? And so I had to go in the tub again. And I think at this point, I don't know if I was just like numb to it. And I just was just, I can't even tell you how many more times it happened. Like I can't, but I would get, so from the scalding tub to now you're getting beat with an extension cord on top of it because I want it to hurt even worse. I want you to get an extension cord on top of your body that's already raw from being sitting in this tub of hot scalding water. And it just was just overwhelming to me. I remember when I would get out of school every day, and to this day, it's amazing how things stick in your brain. To
Mm,
this day, at 4:30, there are days when 4:30 gives me anxiety,
of
and I don't
course.
even know why. And I
Yes.
go, why am I getting anxiety at 4:30 when I'm driving home from work to go home? Like I get this feeling like I don't want to go home. And I go, I want to go somewhere else and
Mm,
just stay there for a little bit. And
mm,
I'm 60 years old. Like this is,
mm.
what is this? This happened when I was 9 years old. And so anyway, so this
Right.
one particular, so the culmination of this is the most horrific thing that happened. So even beyond that, it gets worse. So there's this one particular Saturday, and the night before I made a sandwich, and I didn't finish eating the sandwich, and I left it in the refrigerator. So this Saturday, it's about 11. Now my father is home to this time. This is my father's there. It's a Saturday. And she goes in the refrigerator and she says, "Who made this sandwich?" Now, as a child, when you hear someone say who made something, you're afraid. I'm
Mhm.
afraid at this point. And I go, was she said, "Did you make the sandwich?" And I say no. She said, "You didn't make the sandwich." I say no. Because I'm now afraid of I'm about
Yes.
to be disciplined and I'm going in that tub and I don't want to go in that tub. So she says, "You didn't make the sandwich?" I said no. So she says, "No, I know you made the sandwich because the sandwich has cabbage on it. And no one in this house would do cabbage. Everybody, we know the difference between lettuce and cabbage." So she said, "So you lied." And I was like, "Yeah." So she said, in front of my father, "Go run the tub. Go run the tub."
Wow. In front of your father.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he didn't know before
He,
that you were being scalded.
it is, I just remember something in me just changed like a switch. And so I went to run the tub and I put in this little bit of cold water, like as if I thought a little bit of cold water would help.
Yeah.
And and I took all my clothes off. And I remember coming and standing by the doorway of the bathroom and seeing my father sitting there looking at Soul Train because that's what was on. I will never forget any of that. And I just stood there and I just took off running. I ran to the front door and I opened the door and I ran out of the apartment.
Oh
And
my.
the way that the apartment was made is that there were 5 apartments. And in LA, there's like these little strip apartments, like there's 5 or 6 apartments, and then there's an upstairs. So we were at the back, and there's a driveway. There's usually like a driveway, and then the parking is in the back. If anyone's from LA, like they know that's how apartments are made. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was running up the driveway to get to the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I got probably halfway, and my father chased me down and brought me back into the apartment.
Yes.
And I just I think at that point maybe I always felt that there was a little bit of hope if my dad didn't know about it. But now I'm seeing my dad knows, he's a part of it. And I don't know what these people are going to do to me now. And so I remember them dragging me back into the bathroom. And when they got me to the tub, I just start fighting. I just
Right.
remember fighting with him. And the last words that I heard from her is that she's trying to kill my baby. She's
Oh,
trying to hurt my baby because I was fighting. I wasn't
yes.
going into that water. I was not going. Something in me said, now it's time.
Yes. No more.
And so I just remember crawling up the tiles and fighting and kicking and screaming, and then nothing.
You blacked out?
Yes. So I blacked out. This was around 1:00, maybe somewhere a little later than noon on a Saturday. And when I woke up, I was on the sofa in my dad's apartment, and it was 10:30 at night.
Oh my gosh.
It was 10:30 at
You
night.
don't remember if somebody hit you.
I
You
didn't
don't
even
remember if you were hit or
no,
fell or nothing.
nothing. I had nothing. And I feel like God took me away from that because it was probably too much for me to bear.
Yes.
Like too much for me to bear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like I get angry a little bit because I feel like my dad and my stepmother knew what happened during that time and they refused to tell me. Like they will not tell me. And so I'm left to think. And in my mind, as I think about it now as an adult, I think, why did you wait so long why did you wait for me to wake up? Did you know I would wake up? You didn't know I would wake up. I could have died. And what was the plan? Like, what were you gonna do if I died there? Like what? And so all they said to me when I woke up, the hard part about it all, Wisdom, is that when I woke up, no one said, like,
No
are you
comfort,
okay?
no nothing.
They didn't say, are you okay? Like, we were so afraid for you. All they just said with just a blank face was like, where do you want to go? To this day, those were the words. Where do you want to go? From my father, not from her, from my father. Where do you want to go? And I just remember my dad's sister, my Aunt Gilva, and I said, I want to go to my Aunt Gilva's.
Yeah.
And they packed me up and they took me to my Aunt Gilva's. And when they got to her front door, now my Aunt Gilva lived in Compton, Linwood, like she was a tough lady. And she's my father's family originally from Chicago. So I just remember her just cussing them out and saying, get out of here now. And I just feel like for her, there was probably that challenge between, do I turn my brother in or do I let him go free because of what he's done to my niece? Like, what do I do here? And so they left. And I remember my aunt was a nurse. So my aunt so this is the thing. I had never had any blisters or anything before.
Right.
But this particular time I had blisters. My aunt said that I was burned, probably 2nd-degree burns over like the larger part of my body from my waist down. So I had blisters on my heels, like where the skin is thinner, like it was blisters, and there were blisters in my inner thighs, and my legs had like that look of where it's like burned, but not quite to the point of like your skin is melting. And so my aunt treated me. And I always say to this day, I cannot stand the smell of Bactine because my aunt, she couldn't take me to a hospital because then she would have had to turn my
Yes.
So my aunt treated me during that time. And I have like very limited memory of that. I just remember, her like bandaging me up and putting me in the bed. And then at one point I was throwing up at night. And so she had to get my cousin, which was her granddaughter, to come and sleep with me at night. So she said, so I wouldn't vomit and I wouldn't die and choke on my own vomit because I was so sick during that time. And I have like limited memories of people that came over and look at me and check on me and things. And so it was just like, I just remember wondering, like I asked my aunt, why would my dad like do this? And she just said, I don't know, he's crazy or something, but my aunt nursed me back to health, and she really did. I don't know how she did it, but by God's grace, She nursed me back to health and she put me back in school. And she said, I'm putting her in school. So she put me in school. And the school that she put me in was right down the street from her house and walking distance. And I remember I was in class one day. Maybe I had been in school for maybe 3-4 weeks or so. And the principal came in and said, or they came over the loudspeaker or something and said, Helaine's grandfather is here to pick her up and put her on a plane. So my dad had gotten a job in Aberdeen, Maryland, and he and my stepmother, that's where they escaped to. They went to Aberdeen, Maryland. And here I go again, the child that doesn't speak up. And I don't say a word. I just sit there and go, okay. But my teacher was walking me from we were in like those mobile units going to the building where the office was. And she just noticed something. And she said, do you have a grandfather? Do you know this man? And I said, I don't have a grandfather.
Wow.
So she called my aunt who was in walking distance.
Wow.
And my aunt came down there and the man that was in the office was my stepmother's father. And he said to me, he said, your mom and dad want me to put you on a plane to Maryland. They told me to come and get you and check you out of school and send you to Maryland. And my aunt came in there and just said, she ain't going nowhere. She said a whole bunch of things that it was just, she said she ain't going no effing where. You can get your out of here. And he left. And so she took me home and she called my dad up and had a few words with him and said, she's not ever going back with you. I'm never sending her to you again. She's staying with me until she's an adult. So about 2 days later, maybe 2-3 days later, we get a knock on the door and there's a lady there with a man and a police officer with her. And it was my mother. So my dad had called my mother and said, she's living with my sister. My sister's dangerous. My sister is threatened.
Wow.
And he said, I think it's time for you to go and get her. So out of jealousy and anger to my aunt, my dad had my mother come and get me, which was still a blessing. So my mom was able to get me at that point. But when my mom saw the burns on my body, and it was hard, I think, for everybody, because I was still very innocent and I didn't understand how horrific what had happened to me was. I kind of looked at it as, oh, they just didn't treat me nice. And I never, ever understood how horrible it was. And I go fast forward as an adult, and I say this is the strangest thing. And I was telling you about it, Winsome. For 40 something years, I never held my dad accountable. Me and my dad still had a relationship, everything.
Give me a moment. My God.
Yeah. Yeah. I never held him accountable. I never said, Dad, what you did to me was wrong. I never did. And I went to a wounded women's seminar one year. A lady that I work with urged me to go. And I went with the mindset that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. And there was a lady there, the sweetest lady. She said, I ended up telling her my story because she asked me to pray. And when I prayed, she picked up something and she said, what kind of relationship do you have with your biological father? And I said, I love my dad. She said, tell me the story of your dad. And so I told her about the abuse. And she said, and you still love your dad? Everything's good? And I said, yeah. She said, well, let me tell you something. She said, one day you're not going to love your dad. She said, one day you're going to be very angry for what your dad did to you. And she said, it's just going to hit you one day. And I was like, no. So one day in 2016, I woke up and I was like, I'm not okay. I can't stand to hear this man's voice. I don't want him to call me on the phone. I don't want him to talk to me. And it was a shock for him because all those years had gone by and I was a daddy's girl. I love my dad.
Yes.
My dad is amazing. My dad is
loyal to him.
It was just not. And it was just so interesting that I couldn't force myself to talk to him. I couldn't. I was really struggling with my feelings about what he did. And then when I tried to talk to him about it, I never felt like he took accountability. I feel like he said, I apologize to you. Yeah, I apologize to you. Yeah, I mean, and I just said, but what happened? And he's like, well, I mean, we just laid you down, and he still will not ever tell me what was so horrific that made me lose consciousness.
Yeah. My God, as we're listening to Helaine, and some of us are recalling our own encounters with traumatic events, we're healing, but make no mistake, healing is hard work and it takes a whole lot of courage. We're healing in this circle right now by way of listening and sharing and listening to Helaine. Some of us are not able to access this level of courage that Helaine is displaying. And when you can't find courage, when you can't find courage, you begin to self-victimize. You abuse yourself, you use substances, you abuse sex, you engage in all manner of destructive behaviors, all steeped in self-hate, turning on yourself. When these things happen to you, you internalize the injuries and then you begin to turn on yourself, right? Because of shame and guilt. And we happen to be ashamed. We take on the responsibility of the terrible things that have happened to us, even though they were not our fault.
Right.
We didn't do them to ourselves and didn't ask for them to happen, but we blame ourselves and act out in self-defeating ways. So if you're not a survivor of the things we talk about on this show, or if you've not done your own healing work to confront some of the dormant demons, you might want to trivialize a survivor's experience. Please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't discount a trauma survivor's story. Oh, my goodness, I can't even imagine. Let's see. Marilyn says, thank you, Helaine, for telling your story and becoming a survivor.
Yeah.
Woo!
And I was telling Winsome that, you guys, the strangest part about this is that for years until this year, I never told the story and put my dad in it. I always said that it was my stepmother that did it. I never told the story about my dad chasing me down and bringing me back. I never told the story of that. And it was hard to face that, because I looked at my dad as like my even though he wasn't perfect, I always looked at him as like my protector. And even with the things that he did, I didn't understand how he could allow that to happen. So I didn't internalize it. I said, no, that can't be my dad. Something had to be wrong with him. He had to be like under a hypnosis, or she had a hex on him or something. I would not allow myself to make my dad accountable for it. And even when I stopped talking to him, like in 2016, and I talk to him now, it's just very few and far between like times. I still didn't put him in it. I just made it like, you let it happen. But I didn't actually hold him accountable.
Responsible. I
didn't hold him accountable for chasing me and bringing me back to that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Girl.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I carry those burns to this day, and I carry them proudly. I will wear a swimsuit. I do not care.
You have scars, physical scars.
Yeah, I do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And funny thing is, Delaine and I were friends when I first got back to Phoenix after all this happened. And I was always in that swimming pool. So yeah, I had the scars on my legs, but I just feel like God gave me something different. He knows his strongest soldiers, and from what I've been through, I've been to therapy, and I've had therapists say to me, it's amazing. Like, you truly are blessed that you've gone through all that, and you are not you're not an addict, you're not addict, you're not in sexual industry, you're not you say you just, it's just amazing. And I just give that credit all to God. I really do.
Yeah,
I
I
really
was
do.
about to ask you,
Mhm.
were there some ways though that you some ways that you acted out,
Oh
your
yeah.
trauma
Oh yeah.
responses
Oh yeah,
during?
absolutely, absolutely. When
Yeah,
some, I was in two abusive domestic violence abuse relationships, my first relationships, because I didn't know what love looked like. So yeah,
right,
I was in a teen domestic violence relationship, and I was in a domestic violence relationship that nearly killed me. And I always say that, and it took me right back to Los Angeles. So interesting that that happened to me there. Like Los
yeah,
Angeles has always been a place to try to take me out. So
my
yeah,
goodness,
yeah. My daughter's father, my second child's father, was abusive to me, kidnapped me, raped me, held me at gunpoint. So those were my bad decisions and my acting out from what I went through. I did not know how to recognize a good guy. I did not. I did.
right,
There was not a good person that I could attach myself to. If they were good to me, I would not be in a relationship with them. They had to be aggressive in some
mhm,
form for me
mhm,
to feel like they were a good
right,
person.
but they were paying you attention.
Yeah, I destroyed I was a teen mother. I had a baby at 18. Just destroyed my college career, like going into college and all those things, because I just had no direction. I really could not focus in high school. I was a good person, a good kid. I didn't act out in like aggressive ways, but I
Yes,
did act out in like,
self-destructive
yeah,
ways.
self-destructive
Yes.
ways. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh. But
yeah.
speaking up is not easy,
It
but
isn't.
it is so highly recommended for many reasons. And of
Yeah.
course, my number one reason for speaking out is healing. To me,
Yes.
sharing one story can be cathartic, all
Mhm.
right? And it's a crucial step in the
Mhm.
healing process. By vocalizing experiences, survivors can confront their trauma, reclaim their narrative, and begin to heal emotional wounds. How does speaking up help you?
It helps me. It helps me because I feel like um, a lot of times people don't understand what children are going through. I am a mentor to children in so many different avenues, and I pay attention to signals. I
Mhm.
can tell you, and I'm not gonna say 100% results, but I can tell you when a young girl has been molested. I can tell the behavior changes. I can tell when a child is going through abuse because I know how I hid it and
Yes,
how it took just one teacher to see something and say, this doesn't seem right. This child is
mhm,
not acting right. So I use it to help others. And I also use it to when I see children acting to say, give them, show them grace because you don't know what they're going through. Children go through a lot in their home life and and they don't know how to get those feelings and emotions out. And for me, it was to be talkative and chatty. And
uh,
that only led to more trouble because I was just a chatty person and I always talked. But that was, I think, my way of just like maybe releasing some of the frustration and things. But I was very scared when I was in the fourth grade. And it's amazing that the teachers never noticed that about me,
my
how afraid I
God.
was. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow.
But
Whew.
I'm super protective of children now.
You're super
I
protective.
any and not just my own, any child. I'm sorry, I watch for all kinds of signs with my mentees.
Yes.
If I see them acting different, I'm the first person sending a report up. Like, I don't know, but you need to check something's going on at home. I can tell he's acting this way. He didn't act that way last month. And they're saying, Helaine, you are very vocal for the kids. I go, because I lived those nightmares. I lived
Mm,
those things. And kids feel like they are alone a lot because they feel like their life as a child is compartmentalized from adult life. So they don't want to bother adults with their life. Or anyway, when I was a kid, that's how it was. We felt
mhm,
like we got into fights on the school playground. That was just our business. We didn't
mhm.
share business with adults. But kids, and I think kids at this point, when they go through things at home, they don't want to share it to their teachers because they feel like they're for fear of what might happen to them. You know, if I tell my teacher then my mom or my dad's going to be in trouble, and I don't want my mom and dad to be in trouble. I didn't want my dad to be in trouble. Like I didn't. And I think that it was against, there are things that if I had spoke up, I would not have gone through.
Yes.
But I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a good place to remind viewers.
Yeah.
You know what? Don't take it for granted that the children in your care are okay and that there's nothing going on.
Right.
Speak to them, let them know that if there is something happening, tell them what could possibly happen. Actually tell them what could possibly happen. If someone touches you inappropriately or someone is doing something to you that doesn't feel right, teach them to speak up.
Yeah. Teach them to speak up. Yes.
Teach them to speak up, because as children, that is their only defense. They don't know how to process abuse otherwise. Just teach them how to speak up. Other good reasons to speak up are it's empowering. It's empowering for the speaker and for those listening, and it raises awareness, right? Yeah. And it's good to support others as they're supporting themselves, and for advocacy and prevention.
It is.
By sharing their experiences, survivors can become advocates for change, pushing for improved support services for survivors, better prevention efforts, and changes in societal attitudes and norms surrounding abuse. Yes. Overall, speaking up about past abuse can be powerful and transformative.
Yeah.
Both for the survivor themselves and for others who might be impacted by the story. I want to say that childhood trauma response is similar to being a victim or a witness of a violent crime. It was a crime what was done to us most of the time, right? Because they probably don't classify neglect as a crime per se, but it was a crime, right? And so it was a crime, most of what happened to us. But at insult to injury, no one pays. No one bears the consequences for most of the time for what happens to us, right? So we're left picking up the pieces, rebuilding, recreating, rewriting our stories with very little support and understanding. Yeah. There is not a lot of support for adult survivors of childhood trauma. Let me tell you that right now.
There isn't.
From our own families.
Right. They tell us to go move on. They ask us to get over it. You should just get over it. Everybody had something that happened to them. And I said, I have gotten over it, but I won't stop speaking about it because it's my story. And I do get a chance to tell it. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Many people in your circle. How many people in your circle can you reach out to right now to talk to about something that happened to you in your childhood? Not many.
Yeah.
So do you still work with a therapist?
Yes, I do. And what I learned recently that I didn't look into is because this experience has affected so many pieces of my life, Winsome. It affected me being an appropriate parent. So what happened, I always say that I'm in this wedge of what I experienced as a child being parented and how I took that example into my experience being a mother. And so I was completely not a discipliner. So my kids kind of were out there. And so, but what I got for that was, well, you didn't really show us any love because you didn't discipline. So there's this wedge that you get in the middle of. And what my therapist said to me is that, you know, from everything you've gone through and you've survived it, she said, one thing that you don't realize you're doing is you're grieving. You're grieving not having the parents that you thought or that you knew you deserved as a child, but you're also grieving your children who hold you accountable and responsible because of what happened to you as a child. So the grief part hit me hard because she said, you've been grieving for many years, and grief will make you act out in ways too. And so the therapist has been very helpful for me. I didn't start therapy though until right after COVID, because I went to the therapist
Wait a
during
minute.
COVID.
Your whole life, you
Yes.
had no therapy until just a few years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago. Yeah. I just thought you just moved on with life. You just went through it and you just moved on with life. Get over it. Like, I did not understand it. I've gone through non-epileptic seizures and all these things, but no one said this has to do with your childhood. No one
Oh
said.
my gosh.
Yeah, and those things have to be, those repressed things come up in ways, whether you speak it or not, your body will do
I'm
things to
about, yes, I was about to say that. I
yes,
was about to
yes,
say that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I want to ask you this.
Hmm.
Are you going to be okay after sharing so openly today? If
Yes,
you
I
are
will
you
be.
okay?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
If
I've gotten past that hump of it, and how I know is because I didn't break down and cry. Normally, when I tell it with my dad in it, I always cry. I was like, "Oh, no tears are coming.
ooh,
This this is an out." Ugh.
you're growing, you're
Yes,
growing.
yeah,
Healing. Now, to the audience, if you're as you're listening to this today, if you have a therapist, you might want to book an appointment after this just to check in.
yeah.
And if not a therapist, a trusted person, in
Mhm.
case feelings or thoughts come up that you might want to explore, or you
Yeah,
might meditate or journal to work through them. Um, Let me tell you about venting sessions that are available to you. Um, I'm having a hard time processing Elaine's story, so y'all bear with me.
sorry.
There are venting sessions available with the Speak Your Piece venting sessions. If you want to talk through childhood abuse, if you're triggered by this episode, if memories are surfacing, I too am a survivor, so I get you. Check the link in the description box and book a session to talk to me, someone who's gifted to listen to you. I'm what is known as an empathetic listener. You can talk about anything. Oh, and the link is right there on screen as well. There are free 15-minute sessions available through the end of May. Also, we have a trauma support community, trauma support group. We'll be meeting on Wednesday, May the 29th at 7:30 p.m. Sign up with the link that's in the description box. This month's theme will be memories. We're going to talk about memories of, what we can remember, repressed memories, and how memories affect us. We'll get together and support one another regarding memories and flashbacks, etc. Please come be a part of this supportive community. Um, so, Helaine,
Yes.
you're so brave. You are so brave.
Thank
Not
you.
only are you speaking out, but you're giving space to memories that were buried.
Mhm.
What's it like for you what was it like when that particular memory broke through your consciousness, the memory that your father was complicit?
Um, it caught me by surprise because it was in my mind always. I always knew how it happened, but for whatever reasons, I couldn't vocalize it. Like, I could never tell it that way. I always saw it happening the way it happened with my father being involved in it, but those words never came out. So the day that it came out, I couldn't even speak. Like, I couldn't even say the words. Like, I was like, for me to speak it, I don't know if I felt like if I said it, people would say, "Oh my gosh, they would discount everything about my father." And
Mm-hmm.
ever wanted to, and this is how I know I'm healed. I don't discount many things about my father, but this one experience holds so much, it holds so much value in what could be, that I've learned to not depend on people for validation. That's the one thing I've learned for this, because my dad, I can talk to him 1,000 times and he will never, ever see it as seriously as it was. He just doesn't do it. And he thinks that he's apologized. He really hasn't. And I've talked to both of them, him and her. I've actually seen her as an adult. And yeah, because I have a brother. Remember, she was pregnant. So I have a brother that was a product of that. And he lives in Texarkana. She lives there with him. And back in 2012, he showed up to my house with her. And how I knew I was healed and I knew I was over it is that I was actually kind to her. Like, she came into my place and I was actually kind to her. I didn't talk to her in a friendly way, but I guess I was cordial. Maybe kind is a little bit overboard, maybe cordial. But I did, and my brother came to me and said, "I'm so sorry." She demanded that she come in. And I think she is struggling through a lot of it. She's a lot older now. And I think that she wants to remember the story differently. And in order for her to remember it differently, I have to treat her differently.
Yes.
And no, I'm not. I'm going to just let you deal with the story as you deal with it. So when I approached her in 2020 and called her, and because I called my brother and I said, "I need your mother's phone number." And I called her and I told her, "I just want you to know I forgive you." And the whole thing was blaming my dad. It's your father's fault, blah, blah, blah. Never, ever was accountable for the act of what happened, the abuse. Just, I told your dad to not have your aunts around you because it was influencing you to act a certain way. And it was always my fault. Like, it was put back. And I said, I don't need to hear any of that. I don't need to hear any of it. When I called my dad, he said, it's her fault. So they go back and forth. And it's just, I think that the biggest piece of it for me is just knowing that I could share the story now truthfully while my father is still alive, because that was in my mind. I was going to save my father the guilt. I would never share the story while he was still alive. And I just, no, I get to tell my story when I want to, and not based off of what's going to protect him. Because in the past, I have been told not to share the story, not to say anything, because it was going to affect my dad by my new stepmother. I have a stepmother now. My dad's been married for about 30 years to another lady. She's a wonderful lady. But I remember when my aunt passed away and they asked me to speak and I went up to talk, I just said that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. And when the funeral was over, my stepmother came to me and said, "Your father was really afraid that you would tell the story in front of family." And I go, "Family knows the story." She said, "They don't know the story the way that it really is." And and I just remember thinking, it just never ends. It never ends with the protection of this person. And I'm going to say my story, and I'm sorry if it bothers him that I say it the way that I say it, but I'm going to tell the truth.
God.
And
I lift my hat off to you.
Yes.
I commend you. I commend you. The level of bravery that you are displaying, I am not even near there yet. I've been working with trauma survivors how many years and have gone through I am not even as brave as you.
Yeah.
Oh,
my therapist said that the one missing area of my life is to go through the healing the inner child. She said, I need to heal my inner child because I am angry that I never spoke up. I'm angry that I allowed myself, like, I didn't fight back. I just allowed them to do those things to me. And so
you forgive your abusers, but you haven't forgiven yourself yet.
I still struggle with forgiving myself because I feel like, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you fight back? Why did you let that happen to you? Why didn't you tell someone? Yeah.
You were a baby.
And I just, that's what I struggle with still.
You processed as best as you could. You did what you could. You did what you thought you needed to do to stay alive. To survive. You were just a baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you need to go through that part, go through it. If
Mhm.
that's the last part, you need to lay to rest. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I wanted to protect my father. Even in all of this, I still wanted to protect him and never tell the story while he was here. And I was even kind of funny about how I shared the link because I didn't want him to see it. And it's still this area where I struggle with that. Like I really struggle with protecting his feelings over my own. And it's just
Still.
Mhm.
Do your children know all
Yes,
that?
they do, but I don't know that I think like you said that people struggle with empathy for your story because
Yeah.
they didn't go through it and they didn't experience it and they feel like, "Oh, yeah, that happened,"
That's
but they
mom. I
don't
know
really
mom this
understand.
way. I know
Yeah,
mom this way. She's
yeah.
strong. She's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
She's good.
but that's been the thing that's damaged my relationship with my kids so much is mom's just strong. She's just a strong person. Like she doesn't have emotions. And I think sometimes with childhood trauma, you force yourself to keep pushing through and as an adult. And I don't ever it's hard for me sometimes to show weakness because
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I gotta get through this. Like I gotta move forward. And that's when the seizures came. My doctor said, yeah, you can't push through everything that's psychological. You try, but you can't. Your body will change and do something to you.
Yeah. So I also wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
so some memories broke through. Are memories still coming, or do you feel like
No,
you
no,
no?
they're pretty much, yeah. I'm not no new memories. Those I do struggle with that loss of time. I do, even though I know I feel like God did it for a good reason. I struggle with the memories of that, like, or the idea that I don't have a memory of time in my life that I wasn't asleep. So you go to sleep, you're not going to be. But I struggle with the fact that one minute I was awake and the next minute I wasn't, and I don't know what happened
What
for
happened in that time?
10
Yeah,
hours of my life. Like what happened? And I asked my
unaccounted
father.
for.
Yeah. I said, what did you guys do? Oh, we just waited for you to wake up. And I just remember thinking, but how did you know I would wake up? You
I
don't know that I
know
would have.
that's so crazy.
It
That's
is. It is. It
crazy.
is. And that memory breaking through for me was one that made me angry. Some memories make me cry, but that one made me angry
Maybe
because I would never if a child went unconscious in front of me, I could not run fast enough to an
get them
ER.
to the hospital. Yeah.
I couldn't run fast enough to an ER. So in my mind, the way that I rationalized is that they were waiting to see if I was going to live or die. And that was a
And
hard memory.
planning what they would do
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
in either case.
Absolutely.
Um, nothing gets past this brain of ours. Nothing
No,
gets past our
it
brain.
doesn't. It
There's
doesn't.
a part of the brain
Mhm.
that's the hippocampus, which is responsible for
Yeah.
recording memories. And then the unwanted memories, however, those that are too painful
Yeah.
for us to experience, those go to hide in the frontal cortex of the brain.
Mm. Wow.
And those are known as repressed memories. And they
Yeah.
usually get activated by a
Yeah.
traumatic experience that
Yeah.
could threaten to destroy us or make
Mm.
us lose our minds or
Yeah.
cause unbearable
Yeah.
pain. Well,
Yeah.
the brain jumps into action to protect us by burying those memories, sometimes forever,
Yeah.
sometimes until a safer time, like in
Mhm.
your case, that memory surfaced when you were
Mhm.
strong enough to
Yeah.
bear it.
Right.
And some repressed memories can only be accessed by scientific procedures where they hook you up to
Yeah.
machines, wires,
Yeah.
and procedures like hypnosis.
Yeah.
But something usually happens to trigger the memory back to the surface, whether we are conscious of the trigger or not.
Mhm.
So, was there something that triggered the memory of your father, or like what were you doing anything in particular
Yeah.
that came
Yeah.
through?
So yes, that's a good point, Winsome. So what triggered my memory of my father and me holding him accountable was my son. So I have a younger son and he went through some really tough times, like when he was 19, like the 10 years, 19 to 29. He went through some tough times. He got a hold of a drug
10
that
hours, 10 years.
10 years,
10
10 years.
hours, 10
Yeah.
hours when you were blacked out, 10
Yeah.
hours
Oh,
when he was going through his stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so those 10 years my son was going through, he got a hold of some K2. It's like a synthetic drug that mimics marijuana, and it made him lose his mind. Like he went into a psychotic issues. And so he was homeless. And this was my best kid, like never had a single problem with this kid, like never, ever got in trouble in school, was just a quiet, good kid. And then he started having his whole personality changed. And so he was homeless because he'd get kicked out of everywhere. He couldn't hold a job. He was very angry. And he went to move with my dad. He ended up with my dad somewhere into like the 3rd year of him being out being homeless. And Los Angeles is tough for homelessness. So my dad has a place in the back, like he has a house, and then in the back, like in LA, they have like these like garage, like they're kind of storage rooms that are like you have a breezeway, the driveway, and then to the back there might be like a little storage room, or some people turn them into garages. Well, my dad had it's kind of like a back house. And so I asked him, if it was okay. So he called me and said, hey, your son's here. And I said, okay. And I remember thinking in my mind, Dad, this is your chance to show me that you can be a decent person. This is what I'm thinking in my mind, that you can help your grandson. And when I found out that he had put my son out, and I wasn't so much angry that he put him out because I knew my son was struggling. I was upset that when I asked him, could my son stay in the back house, and that way he wouldn't be in the main house and I would just pay for him to stay there.
Yeah.
He said, no, I have studio equipment in there. I have stuff in there that he can't be in there. And I just remember thinking at that point, nothing that you do in this life will ever make me see you as a father. And that was it. At that point, that was what the pivotal thing. It was, I felt like you didn't do right by me. And now you have the opportunity be decent to my son, and you weren't. And so that was when I kind of said, it's enough.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You know what? Let me read some of these comments because it's been going and going and going. It's been going for a while. I want to go back to even the part where Marilyn said Marilyn knows all kinds of information. The term Irish twins refers to one mother having 2 children who were born 12 months more or less apart. I never knew that. I never heard that before.
Yeah. And there are some people that are like 10 months apart, like they're the same age for literally 2 months, but we're the same age for 7 days.
Oh my gosh, that is interesting to know. Delane says, I'm sorry you went through all that.
Thank you, Delane.
She says that was evil. That sure was.
It was.
She also says, thank God for discernment.
Yeah.
And Mimi says, thank God for that teacher. God bless you.
Yeah.
Some teachers are gifted like that, man.
I just think about the fear of what would have happened if they would have put me on that plane and sent me back to those 2 people. What would they have done to me?
No telling.
Yeah.
Marilyn says, thank you, Helaine, for telling your story and being a brave survivor. Thank you for Daniel says, thank you for using your experiences to help others. Delane said, wow, I never knew what you had been through.
Yeah. And Delane was with me right after that. So this is why I said, as kids, you just push right through it. Like I never even talked about it then when I was that young. I was like, I lived through it, so I'm good. Yeah. Yeah.
Delane says, I worked for 18 years with children who were abused. My heart breaks because I had no idea. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right. Marilyn says they will need you before you need them. That's your parents. Now let's see what Judy Williams says. Thank you so much for your courage and transparency. Your story is a blessing to me, and your obedience to the Spirit for sharing your stories helping me right now. The enemy didn't win.
Man, he didn't.
Not win. Mimi says, so glad you have a therapist to create that supportive atmosphere to be there for you through your process of healing. Etam says, thank you for being a blessing to those children you work with. Yes. Lola Sunshine says, hi, all. Helaine, I'm sorry that you experienced this. It was not your fault, and I pray for more healing and blessings for you. You're an amazing survivor. And Marilyn says, embrace that you are a work in progress and that growth comes from learning and adapting, not from being perfect.
All right.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, y'all, I want you who are listening out there, please stop telling people that it's in the past and to forget it. Please stop telling people that. That's not helpful and that's not supportive. PTSD is real.
It is.
Maybe one can differentiate that they're safe now and no longer in danger, but the body does keep the score.
Yeah.
The memories are real, and it can feel like you're still there. You still feel those feelings like it's happening, you know, sometimes.
Yeah.
For example, how do you tell me it's in the past when every time, I'm talking about myself now, when every time I eat a banana, I have a flashback of incest occurring involving a banana? You can't tell me to not think about that. That's in the past, because it comes to me every single time I encounter a banana.
Yeah. I have to be really careful with hot water, Winsome, because if hot water touches me, it takes me all the way back. I can't run a bathtub that is, the water is too hot. It just puts me
gonna take you back. So that's something you have to live with every single day, because you have to use hot water.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So the only way I'm not going to react to the banana, that memory involving the banana, is if that memory is wiped clean. And you see from Helaine's story that it can't be completely wiped clean. So even if I don't remember the banana incident, somewhere in my subconscious, I could still be triggered and don't even understand why.
Yeah.
Right? What you can't say to a person who's sharing is that, if you want to be helpful, is, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
Right? And mean it. Yeah. And you can ask if they still want to talk about it. And if you've heard it before, ask if they want to tell it again, right? Chances are you're going to hear a part of their story that you hadn't heard before every single time they tell it, right? But if you're tired of listening, here's your out. That's understandable too. It's hard to hear trauma stories. I understand. I understand. They could traumatize you too, right? It's called vicarious trauma. But support them in getting help, right? If you feel like you can't listen, and take care of yourself too. Remember, we have the Speak Your Piece. We have the Speak Your Piece venting sessions that you can call, or you can refer them to call, right? I'm talking to supporters of survivors. The link is in the description box. And if you or they can sign up for the trauma support group community. And the link is also in the description box. Guys, I'm gonna admit that I'm struggling with this one today. Okay. I am not my composed self. I am struggling. This story is heartbreaking, and it's hitting me in places that it's just hard. It's a hard one to listen to.
Yeah.
Let's read some more comments before we go on. Let's see. Hello, everyone. Sorry to join late, but I'll catch the replay for sure. Absolutely. You're welcome. We're glad you're here. Here's the link for the support group, you guys. It's also in the description box. The next date is Wednesday, the 29th at 7:30 p.m. The venting session link is available for those of you who want to talk. And Brown Girls Invest says hugs to all of you. And CTM says thanks for sharing those tips. So your beginning wasn't pretty, but look at you now.
I know.
Damn, you've been busy, huh? Bachelor of
I've been
Science.
busy. I have.
Oh my gosh, she's got a bachelor's of science in
Yep.
government,
Yep.
working on her master's in
Yep.
cybersecurity law. She
Yep.
is vice president of engineering and
Right.
architecture governance. I'm going to
Yep.
ask you what that means in a minute. Mentor for 27 years, Pilates,
Yeah.
Solomon, and Nova.
Yes.
Where are they?
They are.
Solomon and Nova. Grandchildren.
Yes.
And, and,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
no plan to slow down anytime soon.
No time. No time soon.
No plans to slow down. Oh, before I forget, though, what is architecture governance? Because they both sound like separate things. And then you add finance, and I'm completely thrown off. What is that exactly?
So in technology, architecture is the building up of like a system. So software, there's an architectural review or an architectural design. So I am the go-between when there's a software application that they're building on. I am that engineer and architecture governance person where I help them identify. And so I work in end of vendor support. So every application has an end of support time. So if you have a version of Microsoft 2016, they moved to Microsoft 2021 or whatever. So that means that they have to end the support for that. So you just got an application out there that is open for people to hack into or get into. So my job is to make sure when there is an application or software that is about to end, that version is about to end support, is I am helping those application managers identify what their path is to get off of that version into something that's safer, that doesn't pose a cyber risk to the organization. So yeah,
that's a big responsibility. And look at you with that big old smile on your face as if it's fun. As if it's fun. Is it fun? Do you enjoy it?
I love it. I don't know. I was built for difficult stuff.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot.
I love it. I love it.
Responsibility. So proud of your accomplishments, Helaine says.
Yeah, it was a dream for me to graduate from college because I feel like I said, going through what happened to me, that trauma really impacted me later. And I didn't know why I was acting out. And I just, got off track. And 50 something years later, I got back on track.
Look at that. You see that, guys? Yeah. It's never too late.
Never too late. Never too late.
Dreams.
Yeah.
When did you know that you wanted to work in this field, though?
So the interesting thing about that is I was a real estate agent, and then I married a guy since divorce, but we were in the mortgage business together, and then the mortgage business collapsed and I moved to Dallas, and I started working as a project manager on mortgage projects and things like that. And there was a lady at Bank of America. She was a sister, and she was in North Carolina. She was a senior vice president. And she asked me to train her team. One thing that I found out from going through psychotherapy, is that I am a good puzzle putter together. I'm a very organized thinker. Like I think from A to Z. I put things together really well. So that's my organizational skills. So I was a good project manager. And she asked me to teach her technical team project management. And I was like, I don't know technology. And she said, I will teach you. And that was in 2012. And she made it forward. Now here, 12 years later, I am a VP of architecture, engineering, governance. And it's because of her really saying, I'll teach you. And she did.
Oh my gosh.
She saw something in me, and she poured into me. And I, to this day, I mentor girls, anyone that wants to be in tech. If it's a woman, I always say, hey, I'm going to pay it forward the same way it's paid for me. So yeah, that's how it got.
Thank God for mentors, man. Thank God for mentors and people who willingly offer themselves.
Yes,
she did. My gosh. Thank God.
She wasn't getting anything out of it other than just saying, I'll teach you if you teach my project managers how to do what you do, I'll teach you technology. And that was
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, Brown Girls Invest Too says you do EULAs.
What's that?
That's what I want to know. I thought if I read it, you would know. She saying what that is, D. We don't know. She says, I've got a master's in information technology.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
using it.
Oh, you got to use that, brown girls. You got to use that, especially with generative AI. Especially with generative AI, we got to get control of that because AI is taking over. You're telling a machine what to do, and you're expecting this machine to know how to solve your problems. And a machine is only as smart as the person that is giving the information and how they give the information. So it's going to be very dangerous. It's going to be dangerous. There's going to be good things to it, but there's going to be a lot of dangerous things that happen as a result of generative AI.
Tell me about it. You know that they're using AIs now as therapists, as
absolutely.
Listeners.
Yeah.
The same thing I do, the same thing I offer as a empathetic listener. They have AI.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Too. But you can't get the same human interaction from using AI. So
you can't. Yeah. It can do certain things, very, very low level task. But as far as being able to strategize, and the only way it can strategize is if you give it the logic points. And it's not, you can't remove a human being from it. But I know they feel like they can for certain simple tasks, maybe, but it's not going to work the same. There's going to be compliance factors that play into it, and it's scary. It really is scary to me. So yeah.
Helaine says, when I saw you on Facebook after all these years and saw you were an attorney, I was like, look at God.
Not yet an attorney, just master's jurisprudence, which is a law degree in a specialized area. But I considered it to be an attorney, Delaney, but let me tell you why I didn't. Because I knew that I would look to be in family law to protect children. And I didn't feel like I felt like it would take me down. Let's be honest. I felt like watching child crimes and offenses against children would affect me mentally. And I had a friend say that to me. They said, I don't think what you've been through will allow you to do that without almost losing your mind. And I kind of backed away from it. So I'm an advocate from a mentoring perspective now, as opposed to being an attorney. But yeah, that was where I was headed, was family law to protect children. And I just, had someone say to me, I don't know that that's going to be the best thing for you, Helaine.
You got to protect yourself. Got to take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Mimi says you're an exceptional mentor. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm so protective of my boys. Y'all don't even know. One of them didn't have his glasses and I knew he couldn't see. And I went back to the advisor of the group and I said, he doesn't have his glasses. He can't see two inches in front of his face. They need to get glasses. Do I need to pretend and pay for his glasses, because they don't allow you to offer any financial assistance? And she went back to them and she told him that he needed his glasses. And 2 months later, he had his glasses, but it took that long, but he got his glasses. And he couldn't see anything in front of him. And I said, does the teacher not know that he's probably failing because he can't see the books? He can't read anything in front of his face. So he got his glasses. And if they came in with tennis shoes that look worn down, I say, his tennis shoes look too worn. They need new tennis shoes.
Wow. That's so cool. You get to do that. Oh my God.
I was on their case so much.
He says regarding that degree.
Brown said, nope, I'm retired. I get it, Brown.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
Lola says AI is a fast learner.
It is. Yes.
EULA, end user.
End user license agreement. Yes, it's part of that. Yes. We got the end user license, a part of that as well. I just do the vendor support part of it, and they have to make sure that the licenses are up to speed. But I make sure they know when the vendors the support is ending. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yay. So we get to end on a high note.
Yeah.
After all that, my goodness, I want you to pick up yourself. I know you have a lot to celebrate and a lot to be proud of.
Yeah.
But what's one thing you want to big up yourself for in this season? Something you're proud of and something you can take credit for.
I want to big up myself because I have my undergrad. I'm very big on grades, and so I finished my undergrad with a cum laude. It happened at the end, but I am 4.0 in my master's jurisprudence with only 12 credits to go. And I don't know how I've done it, but by the grace of God,
Yes,
I'm a full career girl. And
yes, yes, girl.
I tell you how many times I try to withdraw from a class.
But you persevered. You persevered. Big up yourself.
12 more credits left, and I am 4.0. I'm closing out strong.
Close out stronger. You got this. You got this. Cheers to you. Cheers to you.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Let's see what else. Thank you so much, ladies. Brown Girls Invest, who says yes on all of that, Marilyn. Okay. Mimi says, such beautiful, supportive, wonderful women. Yes, please come join our communities, join our support group community. There's more of that there. So glad to be in this live stream, and congratulations and on that 4.0. Absolutely. Mary says, wonderful sisters in the house. Dee says, yay, you. Now, Helaine, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you made it. You know, the definition of survivor is, and that's another one of my favorite words. The definition of survivor is one who lives on and prospers. Yes. And you are the embodiment of a survivor. Yes. You are prospering. Yes. And you are a great example to many that where you begin does not have to dictate where you end. That's right. Thank you for being so brave and so generous with your story. Thank you. Dennis Smith says, thank you for sharing, my friend. Much love. Hello, Dennis. Marilyn is applauding you. Yeah. Says, congratulations and thank you for sharing. Helaine says, thank you for being vulnerable and telling your story. Thanks. And then here once again is the link to the venting sessions. Thank you for being you. And thank you everyone for being here. Marilyn, C Temp, Helaine, Dennis, D of Brown Girls Travel to Brown Girls Invest to, C Temp, Mimi. I don't want to forget anybody. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for being here. And Helaine. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And as we all go. Yes. May there continue to be ease within your being. Lola Sunshine says something. And may thank you. Be eternally free. Yes. Helaine, thank you. You are absolutely amazing. Thank you for this platform, Winsome. You're welcome, my love. And Judy says, congratulations. Thank you, Judy. Once again, thank you. Have a wonderful Sunday evening. Please stay. Did I notice you started a YouTube channel? Who was that? You didn't, it wasn't you. It was another Helaine. Another Helaine reached out to me today. Really? Yes. Just started a brand new. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Oh, so funny. Okay. All right, everybody. Stay in touch, please. Stay on for just a second. Okay, I will. All right. Bye, guys. Bye, everybody. Thank you.